Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Open Mic Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have my guest speaker, Adrian Nelson, and he's going to join us shortly. So, thank you so much for joining, everyone. Adrian is from Cape Town, and he's going to introduce himself shortly. You will see that we have a totally different look and feel. We are broadcasting today live on three channels. And I just want to say welcome everyone. And I think we are live first time on YouTube. So I want to say welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining our talk today. You will see from all three channels, you're going to be able to send through your comments and send it through your thoughts, your comments, everything that you feel. And if you have any questions for Adrian or myself, I want to welcome you to the show. It's a new look and feel. And we're starting off the new year for the second half of the year, if that makes sense. So yeah, I just want to give you an intro again before we commence with Adrian. Welcome, Adrian.
Wow,
Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for inviting me. Hi.
Yeah, so guys, Adrian is from South Africa. He's from Cape Town, and he is joining us today live. And his story that he's going to be sharing with us today is choosing life from rock bottom. What an interesting story. When I first heard this from Adrian, it's quite amazing how we go through our lives and the type of levels and channels and the different spaces where we are at in our lives. So a very interesting story, and I welcomed Adrian to share this because I think a lot of people at this moment is feeling very lost. They are hitting rock bottom. A lot of people have they've lost people in their lives, and a lot of people in South Africa has actually lost their jobs as well. So I think this is going to be an inspiring and motivating talk for us all, to hear where Adrian's coming from. So thank you so much for sharing. Before we continue with the story, I want to say to Adrian, please introduce yourself. I think share with people who you are, where you're from, and more especially, what do you do?
So thank you very much. Hi, everybody. My name is Adrian. I prefer to call myself a conscious living practitioner. And that really comes from, as Yashni mentioned, that there was a time in my life when I really felt, in actual fact, there was a time in my life that I was convinced beyond the shadow of a doubt that God or the Almighty or whatever word it is that you use must definitely be making mistakes, because I was convinced that I was that mistake. Like, there was no doubt in my mind about that. And I think where we are at the moment with the world, there's such heaviness that's happening at the moment, and it's so challenging for everybody. And I've been hearing repeatedly people saying to me that I'm supposed to be able to keep it together, and I'm supposed to be fine, and I'm supposed to be all right. And I'm like, but who says that you're supposed to be all right? And I find that just more and more of us are trying to appear that we're doing okay and appear that we're in control of things. And for some reason, a lot of people had it in their mind that I was in control of everything. And I think that the real thing that I want to bring home to basically to everybody is that even when you practice something like spirituality or conscious living or conscious being, you are still part of Earth, and Earth is still going to happen. But it's in my sort of way of living, it's different ways to maybe cope with things and to maybe grow through things and to maybe get some lessons through things. But all of that doesn't mean that you're not allowed to have bad days, and you're not allowed to have challenges, and you're not allowed to feel overwhelmed. Because I think we are at a point where we feel that we have to always be in control. And it's very hard to be in control of anything on this planet, really, if you don't, first of all, 100% understand exactly what it is. And also, you don't really exactly know what is going to happen next. So I think something that I can say right off, I think the most important thing that many of us can do for ourselves at this particular point in time is to give ourselves a little bit of a break, to be more kind with yourself, to be more patient with yourself, because we are practicing more patience with others and more kindness and understanding and those sort of things with others. But there really is no point if you do that at your own detriment, because then you're really helping absolutely nobody at all. If everybody does that, then nobody's helping anybody.
So true, so true. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you guys. I see there's quite a bit of people joining us from all different platforms. I was saying to Adrian earlier today, I bought myself a little tool and I'm busy playing around with it. So, and I've decided to, use it today with our talk. So, thank you guys so much. It's such a pleasure being able to do this and to share this with everyone today. So, Adrian, I think let's start with your story. Choosing life from rock bottom. I mean, I can only imagine. Sometimes we hear people are in a rock bottom phase of their life. I think everybody would have a rock bottom phase for themselves in a different way or in a different light. So I am interested to hear, is that what was for you a rock bottom phase in your life, and how did you choose your life and how did you move forward? So I'm going to hand it over to you.
So I think, thank you, my early sort of rock bottom moment or time phase really was sort of like in 2015. I'm not always that good with time, but it was, I think, somewhere early in 2015. And I've been doing Reiki for about a year, and I just sort of started with crystal healing and sort of trying to live a very perfect sort of life. But I had a lot of conditioning that came with me to the point where I was. And as I said, there was a point where I believed that God makes mistakes, because I believed that I was a mistake. And there's obviously a whole chemical thing that starts to happen in our brains as we go into certain directions. But simple truth of the matter is, I really didn't feel that there was any point for me to be around in the world anymore. I didn't want to be alive. I didn't want to be the inconvenience that I am to everybody. The curse that my presence was basically to everybody. And so I decided that I wanted to end my life. And I did a lot of extensive research into it, because I didn't want to be stopped. I didn't want to sort of like change my mind or anything like that. I really actually just wanted to go, because I was so, I suppose, wrought with emotion, and I just really felt there was no point to me. I felt heavy. I felt tired. I felt like in the way. It started to affect my health. It started to affect my job. It started to affect my relationship with others. And I think so many of us are feeling like that at some point. And almost everything that I do in my life these days is aimed at, especially with my YouTube channel, trying to maybe get that one person that sits over there in at the home or wherever they are, and they feel that they are alone. Because a lot of us often feel that when we have difficult experiences in life, that we are alone, that nobody feels this way, nobody ever felt this way. There is no way that you can sort of get through this. And it doesn't really matter what brings you there, whether it's just sort of like a lack of confidence, whether it's a marriage falling apart, a relationship, a job that you maybe lose. It can really be so many things. But I think one of the biggest things that I often get is, because I happen to speak to quite a lot of people, is that people explain to me very often in this sort of order. So they'll first tell me that nothing is wrong, and then they'll start apologizing for a couple of things, and then they'll tell me what is actually wrong, and then they will actually tell me that, but they shouldn't feel this way. So let's just use a very simple example. So let's say you had a business for 10 years and you really liked the business, and then because of COVID, the business had to fold. And so this is how I'm feeling, and I'm so emotional, and it feels like I lost like a friend, but I shouldn't feel this way, because there's other people that that don't have jobs, and there's other people that are feeling sad, and there's other people that lost more than me. So I shouldn't feel that way, because it means that I'm not grateful. But if there's one thing that I am a very big advocate for, is that you are allowed to feel whichever way you are feeling. And I got this so profoundly because a couple of years ago, my manager called me to the office, and she said to me, what's the problem? And I said, this is how I feel. And she said to me, you're not allowed to You've got no right to feel that way. And something in my mind kind of sparked. It was like, but what do you mean? Like, you're sort of allowed to feel the way that you feel. And yeah, so I think, sorry, I went running in the rain the other day. So I think the one thing that I sort of want to kind of bring across, though, is that we often feel that, first of all, you're not allowed to feel the way that you feel, which I don't fully agree with. You're allowed to feel whichever way you feel. And also, there's a path up from anything in this world. Just because I said I came from this rock bottom and I had this thing where I said, well, if what goes up must come down, then maybe what goes down also has the potential to come up. But just because I changed my mind and just because I chose life, doesn't mean everything just happened for me just like that. There were still many,
Mhm.
many challenges to have. I still had those beliefs that I wasn't good enough. I still had some of those beliefs that I was a mistake. I worked with a lot of people. About 3.5 years ago, I discovered how incredibly amazing regression hypnosis is, and that is something that I do these days. So I think, first of all, it's really just about accepting that you are actually, if you are feeling that you're at rock bottom or you feel you're heading towards that, it's about first and foremost actually accepting that and having honesty with yourself that I don't really think that I'm keeping things together. I don't think that I'm able to cope with things. And whether you feel that the way you're feeling and thinking is justified or not, if that's the way you're feeling, that's the way you're feeling. And if you want to kind of move away from there to a space that is healthier and that is more conducive for you, you have to actually acknowledge where you are first. I feel hopeless. I feel terrible. I feel like a mistake. I feel pointless. I feel like a waste. Because if you won't allow those things within yourself, a lot of times we just want to go towards light and we just want to go towards happiness. But where are you moving from is always sort of what I look at. Because if you don't understand where you are moving from, it's very difficult to head towards something different. And even if you do get to a beautiful space, you can sometimes have the experience where your life starts to fluctuate up and down, up and down. So you're happy, sad, good, bad, good, bad, because you don't understand what is it that is bringing you to this happy space and is bringing you to the sad space. So you kind of live by default. And I did that for a very, very long time until I decided to obviously do it in a different sort of way. And interestingly enough, that shaped my life a lot in the way that I am right now.
So before you go into how you shaped your life, so I must say, and I just want to show you this little trick that I just found out right now. Have a look there.
Oh,
Hmm.
hi.
Meryl, thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
your amazing comment. Look at how much of love you're getting. Hey, look at
I'm
there.
very blessed. I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed. Thank you.
So we do have a question. Someone from YouTube is currently watching. Her name's Rudo, and she has a question. But before we go to that question, because it's quite deep questions she's asking, you know, we have it's it's easier said than done. When you're in that state of mind, in the sense of rock bottom, and and you've mentioned that, you know, you were people, you thought that you were making, you were miserable, you were making people feeling miserable, you don't feel like you want it anymore. You also kind of second guess everything that's happening to you at that given moment. You also become a victim, right? And
Yes.
I think myself, when you're in a victim state, it is very, very hard to acknowledge that, right? Because your state of mind is not in a space where you can do rational thinking, right? So before you go into your route as to what you did, I just want you to, to think about that, and to share with us, because that there is hard for people to make that shift, leave alone acknowledge it, right? Because some people don't acknowledge that they're in a victim state.
And yeah, that's absolutely true. And when I say that I was at rock bottom, I mean, I was at rock bottom. Like I was at the lowest layer of the rock. That I basically I remember I was sitting in Cape Town in this beautiful sort of area called the V&A waterfront, and I actually, I didn't want to be saved. I did want to die. I didn't feel that I wanted to be in this life. So I made a concerted effort to dress really, really nicely, much nicer than I'm dressed today. I had this big pair of sunglasses on so that nobody could actually see me. I was very mindful of my body language. I really, really researched how is it that people act when they actually are suicidal, because I didn't want anybody to suspect it, because I didn't want anybody to stop me or to come and have a nice talk to me. I was at a point where I didn't want anybody to sort of console me. I didn't want anybody to tell me that everything is going to be okay, because I quite simply didn't believe that. And I think there are so many of us who are feeling that way, that you just want to escape. You just want to get out of this world. You just want to get away from everything, because everything has just become so much. It's a very lonely sort of space to be in. And you don't reach out for help because you just don't really believe that help is available. And it's also a very self-destructive sort of space where you become literally your own worst enemy, because you actually create difficult things for yourself to confirm the fact that yes, you definitely are useless. And you start to look in life at life in a very negative sense of the word. um, and I think if I can actually sort of maybe give you just one or two tips, some things to sometimes look out for. And these are not dead giveaways, but if you look at someone, you sometimes see those people that are always happy, they are always laughing, they are always smiling, they are always incredibly positive. Now, some beautiful people have got that beautiful, really fantastic thing about them. But if you really loved your dog and your dog died, and you say, like, you know what, it's okay, it's not so bad, I'm all right with that, I'm not going to miss my dog, or that sort of things. Or when somebody seems to be incredibly down and they suddenly become incredibly happy, that is usually quite a big telltale sign as well. Because during the space of confusion, and when people sometimes almost feel like they're kind of moving through life in a fog, that is where you're still going through the emotions, where you're feeling lonely, where you're trying to come to terms with the fact that literally that you are useless, because that's basically how you feel. But once people actually make the decision to take a drastic step, something like suicide, they usually become incredibly happy, and their spirits really lift, because they believe that they have now found the solution and they've accepted the solution within themselves. So a lot of times we sometimes feel, as especially as other people, we sort of begin to feel that I should have known that something was wrong, because I know the person was down, and maybe you spoke to them, or maybe you did something, and then it seemed like suddenly they were better. And a lot of times people start to blame themselves for things that are happening. But being in a space where you are really feeling lonely, isolated, mistake, horrible, those sort of things. I mean, I was at a point where I all I wanted to do when I wake up in the morning was go to bed. And then when I went to bed, I would actually not really want to fall asleep, because I know that at some point I have to wake up again, and then I have to wake up back into this world again. And so that in itself obviously made things worse, because now I started to have insomnia, because now I started to have a fight against being sort of like awake and asleep sort of thing. But I'm not going to lie to you, it was terrible. It was terrible. It was, yeah, it was just, it was not the nicest thing in the world to have. And I know that there are so many people that are feeling that way at the moment. And I know this is going to sound like such a big cliche, but if I could pull myself from that really deep, dark pit of swearing at God sometimes for
Yeah, I can
how
imagine.
how could you not pay better attention when you made
Yeah.
me? How could you allow this mistake to slip through? A lot of us feel that way from time to time, and it's normal to feel that way sometimes. Okay.
So there's your question for you from Ruda.
So, hi, Ruda. It says, absolutely, you should be allowed to feel how you feel. My question is, why did you feel like you were not enough? What experience, situation happened to put you in that space? That is a really, really excellent question. So, without going into too much detail about the rest of everybody else that was involved, but when I was sort of born, my parents were really, really young, and they had their own sort of challenging backgrounds that they were coming from. And I think a lot of times in life, we want to blame the people that played a very sort of pivotal part in our life as we grew up. And in my case, there was a time when I was really, really, really incredibly upset with my parents because they haven't sort of told me, like, you sort of 16 now or you're 18 now, you like, this is the thing that you need to do, and this is what you need to do, and that is what you need to do. And I really blame them for the fact that I felt my life was in a certain way, and they haven't done anything about it. So with my whole sort of suicide thing, I was also like, I'm going to show you all. You didn't raise me properly, so I'm going to actually show you what I'm going to do to you to sort of get back to you like that. So it was a very hateful, very bad, very spiteful sort of space. And just before I get to the part of my life, I think the part that I just want to add very, very quickly is that when we look at ourselves, human beings are really glorified clones, literally, because we come from patterning and patterning and patterning. And in the same way that we have DNA that make us look in a certain way, there's also sort of, I suppose you can call it coding or messaging inside of your DNA for who you
Mhm.
are. So sometimes the patterns that we have are not really necessarily our own patterns. It could be that we patterns that adapted from other people all around us. And if you think of one very simple, let's say, for example, I spoke to one of my best friends about this yesterday, in a way that we can sometimes start to foster certain patterns later on in life. Let's say, for example, you've got problems with romance, with love. It could literally be that when you were a child, or maybe if you're a parent at the moment, this is actually very valuable to think about, is that, say, for example, your child doesn't like to eat peas. And then you say to them, well, if you eat the peas, then I'm going to give you dessert. If you don't eat the
I don't
peas,
even like eating peas.
I actually happen to love food. But we do this thing and we think that we're motivated because if you eat this, you're such a good boy, you're such a good girl, you're going to grow strong, and then you're going to get a big bowl of pudding. And sort of like a big bowl of pudding and growing up strong, the two don't sort of match 100%. But if you don't eat them, then your life is. Can you think where your life is going to go? You're not going to grow up strong. You're going to be sick. And as a parent, maybe all you really want to do is to encourage your child to actually eat healthily, but our mind doesn't always discern between those things. And you start to grow a pattern that if you do what other people expect of you to do, you will get a reward, you will be happy, life will be wonderful. But if you don't do that, then things can actually turn out for you in not such a good sort of way. So that is just a general thing over there. Yeah.
I'm just thinking, right? So I heard something this morning, right? And for me, and you said it now again, and we always create expectations. We don't realize how much of expectations that we create within ourselves, leave alone for other people, whether it's your partner, whether it's your children, whether it's your friends, whether it's your colleagues, right? And you just kind of brought me back to a song that I was listening to earlier today, and it was about expectations. And and again, it went back to when your parents, were teaching us and what they were doing, and some of their behaviors, and they created these expectations, and we had these hopes for ourselves, and we created these expectations not realizing what it was actually doing to ourselves. Oh my, what? I had one of my moments right now.
Let me go back to Rudo's question. So, well, a couple of things happened to me, but so one of those in my early 20s, I had how do I put this? I want to put it in the proper sort of way. I'll try to explain afterwards. But so a couple of things happened, and I was sort of dealing with my own sort of sexuality problems at the time. And like most people, I had trouble, coming out of the closet and those type of things. But that was not really my biggest concern. My biggest concern was that I was incredibly psychic. I've been sort of born with this big gift, which to me was the biggest curse on the planet. And that was a problem for me. And when you try to run away from yourself, you will get yourself into very tight spots. I mean, my running has taken me to wonderful places. I lived in the US at a point, and I lived in the Middle East at a point, but I really was incredibly unhappy because I was running away from myself, and I was running away from the fact that I grew up poor. I was running away from the fact that I sort of felt that certain people that were supposed to be helpful weren't really there. And when you're in victim mode, you will really find things to be a victim about. And I mean, I remember this one time I used to live in boarding school when I was in high school, and one of the kids that lived with us, they had a farm that was sort of like on the shore, and a big crate of sneakers has sort of like washed out on the shore. And every single person in the school had a pair of these sneakers. Absolutely everyone, from the highest to the cleanest, absolutely every single person had a pair, except for me, of course. And I felt like such a victim. Oh, poor me. All the good things that happen in life never could really come past me. But in the same token, I actually never even mentioned this to my parents. They didn't even know about it. So I didn't even know they may have actually had money to buy it for me, but I just didn't mention it to them. But I still chose to feel really bad for how unfair life is to me. And then, sort of like in my 20s, I met this guy, and things didn't work out. I was in a complete sort of like poor me, poor me. So now definitely, I'm definitely useless because not loved and etc. etc. And then actually, probably about I think about 4 or 5 months down the line, then I had this experience with a different sort of guy that I was being raped by this other guy. But a couple of years later, when I actually looked back in retrospect, I could also see how I myself sort of invested in everything that happened, because while this dude was running his agenda, I was also running my agenda, because I sort of wanted to show that other guy that you didn't want me. Oh, well, I got somebody better than you, so look at how good I now am. And but there were a couple of those sort of things that were going on for me. And then I didn't go to university, and then I felt like, oh my goodness, but you get a million things to really feel bad about. And I think that sometimes what you really want to do, instead of trying to run away from what you feel, is to actually sit with what you feel. And I had to do a lot of those sort of things. I mean, I wrote letters to myself. I wrote letters to the universe. I wrote letters to God. I wrote letters to the earth. I burned them. I buried them. I did so many things. And I think that I'll have to be honest. I think for the first maybe 2 years or something like that, so we're kind of looking towards about 2017 at the moment, I also didn't really feel that I was making any sort of progress, because I still didn't really believe that I kind of deserved to get in any sort of healing or anything. But I think the big sort of offset for me was really when I turned 30 years old, because I turned 30 years old and I didn't have sort of like a solid job. Well, I had a job, but it wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I had no idea what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I absolutely despised people who had a plan in this life. Like, I couldn't stand them. I think if I could look at them and somehow just make them die, I would have actually
Mhm.
done that. I hated everything and everyone. So it went from a space of just hating myself to actually hating everything and absolutely everyone. And I felt lonely. I felt I wasn't good enough. I was 30. I didn't have kids. I wasn't even married. I didn't know what I was doing with my life. I kept on telling myself consistently what a loser I am. And it was so funny, because in this one day, I was sitting on the porch with my one uncle, and we were having a beer, and I was, it's like, what's going on? And it's like, I feel so bad because I'm not married and I don't have a house, and I feel that you should have kids. And it's like, but you don't even like kids. Like, well, not that I don't like them, but I mean, I'm never going to get excited about changing a diaper at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's never going to happen. And he said to me, you're unhappy about all of these things, but do you even want these things? And I think it was a real eye opener for me, that I was feeling so incredibly lost in this world, and like I was losing out on all the sort of sense of happiness of what life should be. But when I really thought about it, I didn't actually even want those things. I had different aspirations. I didn't fully know what they were, but I knew that it wasn't the sort of house, picket fence, and 3 kids sort of thing. And I think we really want to sort of look at life sometimes and really ask ourselves a very sober question. The things that I'm unhappy about, do I actually even want these things? If nobody told me that this is what success actually means and this is what happiness actually means, would I even want to have those things to start with? Because I think a lot of times we will find that we actually don't want those things. We have just been conditioned to believe that this is what we want to have. And when we go with the conditioning, that can actually even cause more problems sometimes, because now you do all the right things. I mean, I could have been married if, if things went the way that I wanted them to go. They just didn't go the way that I wanted them to go. But then you end up getting married, and you end up getting the house and the money and the job and the car and all those type of things. And then you're still horribly unhappy because you you still feel sort of out of alignment with yourself, and you don't have what you should have, and or you have what you should have and you're not unhappy, and now you call yourself being ungrateful. Pretty much what a lot of us are doing with COVID at the moment. I feel like I'm losing control, but I shouldn't feel bad because there's other people that are doing way worse than me. Well, life is about you, and this is about you, and we're focusing on you right now and not those people. We don't know what their soul contracts are. We're just focusing on you for now.
Yeah, so true, Adrian. A lot of people right now is, as much as they're, concerned about the people that have COVID, and even, concerned about some of the things that, that they see and that they hear, they are not looking within themselves. If there's one thing, it's almost 2 years now. It's one thing from a COVID perspective is that if it's taught us anything, is to look within ourselves at this time. It's given us the time and the space to have reflected on our lives as to what is it that we want and what is it that we need, and to choose for ourselves what is important today. Because out there in the world, it's superficial, it's like materialistic. We've never had the chance to had stayed at home and work from home. How many people out there has always said, I wish I could work at home and not sit in traffic and not drive, right? When I drive to work, it takes me 3 hours of my time a day, right? And I find sitting in traffic much more relaxing versus being at home, because you are working 10 times harder at home versus when you're in traffic, when you're going to work and when you're coming back home. You actually don't realize it is you, yourself, and I that is actually taking a breather.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And
I
I think
actually, I'm sorry.
go, go for it, go for it.
I actually really thought about this, Sheshni, and I think when you really look at the way humans were living, all of us on this planet, if we somehow didn't kind of stop the way we were doing things, or at least tone them down a little bit,
Yeah,
I really think that we were going to self-destruct, or we were going to
yeah,
cause some major explosion or something like that, because the way humans were heading was just, it was very sort of self-destructive. We were
yeah.
basically destroying the planet that we're living on and the only home that we have. And I think that collectively we somehow had to come together and to bring ourselves to that point of realization that something has to be done. We somehow had to kind of bring ourselves to a halt over here. And when you really think about it, everybody is going about saying this: I wish the world can change. I wish things can be different. If only we can do this. If only we can do that.
Yeah.
In different ways, all of us were really sort of saying that. And I think we brought ourselves to a point where there's nothing, nowhere to run to. This is all where we are at the moment. There is no other option. This is sort of it. And um, uh, even though it really wasn't easy in the beginning, because I think the misconception sometimes is when you live a more sort of like predominantly spiritual sort of life as I do, that you
Mhm.
don't have any problems and you don't have concerns and everything is wonderful, and you just focus on the fairies and the dragons and and all those
Yeah.
type of things. But the simple truth is that you are human, and you are human on planet Earth, and Earth is still happening, and you've got human sort of experiences. And I think the reason why I really wanted to speak about sort of like the topic that we're speaking about today is because a lot of us, as we go through life, we sort of suppress a lot of things within ourselves. Now, that happened, but it's okay. I'm not going to think about it. We kind of put them all in these little compartments over here. But then you get to a place where we are at the moment, and a lot of those things that we have suppressed is starting to come through, is starting to surface at the moment. All those things that we felt we're not going to deal with, it's almost like, if you kind of think of it almost like a bucket that we have, like a full bucket that we have, we kind of just kept on putting things over there, and that is sort of like the bucket that we're ignoring. We're not dealing with that right now. We're not dealing with that. We're not placing that, those sort of things. But the buckets become a little bit full. And so some things are starting to come to the surface. And normally, when things come to the surface, they actually come to the surface because it's something that you can heal at this particular point in time, that you can work through at this particular point in time. But in order to work through things, you need to understand where it's coming from. You need to understand your conditioning and your patterning and the things that got over there. And it's very easy to say that everybody's always against me and life never works out for me and I must be cursed and all those sort of things, and everybody's jealous of me. But it's really coming from you. All of life, all of your experience really does come from you. It's a conscious expression of who you really are. And until you can have the willingness to start to actually consciously look at that and to actually work with that and to understand it and to make peace with the things that are holding you back and to forgive and to let go and those sort of things, until you actually do that, life is going to keep on being challenging for you. Life is going to keep on, the same patterns are going to keep on repeating themselves. If one person leaves, another person's going to come and take their place. And until you literally get to a space where you take that conscious responsibility for your own life, and it's not always the easiest thing in the world to do, but it's definitely worth it. It's and I mean, make no mistakes. I've been doing this for many, many years, but just last week, actually, I went like, "Oh, Adrian, look! You see, there's that old pattern coming back again." But when we understand our patterns and when we work with our patterns and we take responsibility for it, we're not trying to fight it. We're not trying to change who you are. Um, but you understand what the patterns is that you have within yourself. When they start coming, I was like, oh, I can see you. You're coming to me. I can see you. We're not doing that yet today. But if you're not doing the work within yourself, you don't actually get to see the the sort of the build up towards the same thing repeating itself over and over, and all you experience is the ramifications of the pattern having already kind of set in full-blown mode. That is when you are left with the lover or with the money or the health or the job or whatever really happens to you. Is it easy to take control of your life? No. Is it worth it? Most definitely.
I think sometimes we just overthink things, and we also not conscious about our thoughts, right?
Mm.
And you've mentioned about the patterns, that when you go back to your patterns, and if you're not conscious enough and recognize them, it's going to keep on, on that hamster wheel. You're going to keep on going into that same patterns again. It's not going to,
Yes.
be any different. It's you're gonna literally have the same result. If nothing changes, everything's going to stay the same. It'll stand still, right? Guys, something that you guys also don't know is, Adrian's an NLP coach as well. So if you guys are looking for NLP, he is a fantastic coach. I'm sure he'll drop his details for us, and you guys will be able to, definitely get in contact with him as well. Just some comments from Estelle.
So Estelle says that's true, not always fun. No.
Yeah.
But you know what's less fun? Do you know what's less fun actually? Is when you choose to not look at your patterns and you choose to just live your life almost in a blur. I'm not going to look at those sort of weird things that those people are doing. And then what's less fun is that you keep on having the same experience over and over, and you don't even know why you're having it. And somehow you are still feeding this pattern from within yourself, even though you're not consciously aware of it. So every time when you have that backlash, you actually have it worse than the previous time. So that is a lot less fun. It really is.
Yeah. So before we still have a few minutes, Adrian. Do you want to share with some of our our talkers, our viewers right now, as to how did you bring yourself out of the space that you were, and what were some of the tools and the tips that you basically had put in yourself? I see Estelle's got a comment there for you quickly.
So say yes.
Ah,
Welcome.
true believer, Estelle, true
um,
believer.
yeah, so I think for me, what was really challenging for me is that I didn't actually know what I had to do. And I was like, okay, so um, uh, the idea for me to fully choose life was too much at that particular point in time because I've already given up and all those sort of things. So I decided, okay, I'm just going to take it day by day. And actually, taking it day by day became a little bit too challenging for me as well. So I said, you know what, if I can just get myself through the next 5 minutes. And then when I got through the 5 minutes, I said, okay, if I can get myself through the next 5 minutes, what is something that I can do for myself right now to just help me through that space? And I've been very fortunate to have had some really amazing sort of support and practitioners and people along the way that really helped me. And some came as incredible help, some came as incredible lessons, which was a time that was not so nice. But I decided that if I wanted to somehow make life work, I had to really invest time within myself. So as a person who was a professional people's pleaser, it was very difficult for me to find time for myself because I filled my life with everybody else's life. I tried to sort out everybody else's problems. And it's a typical savior sort of mentality because you're actually looking to be saved, but so you save everybody else. And so I did quite a lot of Reiki sessions. I did quite a lot of crystal healing sessions with different practitioners. But then I remember that I was laying on this bed this one day and I was in the middle of this really astounding crystal healing session. And I was saying to myself, but I've been here 3 months ago. And then I recall that I've had some other sessions that have also been here. Like, so I have the session, I feel amazing. 2 or 3 months down the line, I'm all down in the dumps again. I have another session, I feel amazing. And to me, it was like a little bit of a cycle. And I thought to myself, well, I must somehow be able to really find this within myself and to be able to maintain this within myself. And that is really where I became more interested in things like mirror work and like metaphysics, and everything is just created from energy. I really got into like regression hypnosis, even though I really thought it was the biggest load of nonsense initially. I got into NLP, neuro linguistic programming, which is sort of created from therapy, psychology, and hypnosis in any ways. And it's a very wakeful sort of hypnosis. So, and I've always been doing tarot reading. I've been doing tarot readings for about 20 years now. And but for me, I really had to put in the work. I had to take it one day at a time. I called out to life and I said, I need a little bit of support over here. And I actually got a dog, from which I didn't even want in the first place. But life will always send you that beautiful something if you ask for it. And I think sometimes we don't want to ask for things because we've been taught if you ask for something, it means that you've got lack and limitation. But when you come from a point where you can it really look like the whole entire universe is actually behind you and the whole universe has actually got your back and wants you to succeed. And when you ask for something, you really ask from a greater part of who you are that really does want to support you and does want you to be there, then it makes a huge, huge difference. Now, the one thing about me, the one question that I always ask anybody who ever comes who wants say that they want to work with me, I ask them, are you interested in changing your experience of life? You don't have to do how to do it or any one of those things, but um, if you are even on the smallest way saying, I'm so tired of this, if there's a different way that I can do life, can is there maybe something that we can do? Then I say, okay, no problem, we can work together. Because I think now I want nobody to get mad with me, but in traditional therapy, which there definitely is a space for in this world, you sometimes get that people go to therapy for months, for years. And all you really sit and say is how bad you feel about things. Now, there is really a wonderful benefit in being able to speak to someone else, especially if you feel that there's nobody else that you can speak to, or you'll be judged for your voice or that sort of thing. But I think, sorry, if you're complaining about the same thing, or let's just rephrase that, if you are feeling overcome emotionally by the same thing 3 years down the line, or even a year down the line, and you've been seeing the same person for that period of time and things haven't really changed, you might want to consider a different approach. The approach doesn't have to be me. The approach doesn't have to be what I do, but I'm just saying that you might want to think of a different approach. And the reason why I'm saying that is because remember, when we typically go for something like therapy, counseling, coming to see me, any one of those type of things, people don't generally come and see me because their life is so incredibly perfect. There's usually something that bothers them, you know? Um, and I'll be like, okay. And let's talk about it. Tell me what's wrong. Tell me what's going on. Tell me how you feel. Let's get an understanding for who you are. Let's get to know you as a person. But then let's start looking at your patterns. What is probably holding you back? How do we help you sort of grow out of the situation where you are at the moment? Because what really happens sometimes, it's so easy that you can start building a codependent relationship with somebody that's supposed to help you, because you become so elated by the idea that somebody's finally listening to you, that you actually don't really subconsciously want to heal the pattern that you have. Because if you heal the pattern, then you kind of equate that this person's not going to be part of your life any longer. But this person, we sometimes forget that this person is here to serve a purpose in your life. And when that purpose has been served, you peacefully go your way and they peacefully go their way. Again,
Not
I'm not
everybody
a therapist.
Not everybody does that, right? They become so codependent on people, and they also believe that they're going to solve their problems for them, not realizing that you go to people to seek guidance,
Yes, yes,
and for you to do the work yourself. It's not for other people to do the work for you. If life was that easy and that simple, then we'd have so many people out there solving, your problems instead of you solving yourself. And that's why they say life is truly, truly, yours to own and to have and to keep for yourself, because you have to put in the work to get what is needed out of it. No one else is going to do it for you. It's easy said than done. A lot of people say that, but everything comes with hard work, though. It's not meant to be easy. Not at all.
and
All
I
right.
feel,
So,
oh, sorry.
yeah, go for it. Go for
I
it.
feel that the answer that we're looking for is always within us. And
Mm.
so, I mean, you would know that I've mentioned this before in just our conversations, basically, but with everybody else as well. I don't have your answers, psychic or not. The simple truth is, I don't have your answers. And most definitely, I am not your answer either. You are your own answer. All I do is to help you to get in alignment with yourself, to find the answers within yourself. Because when you find it within yourself, you really can't miss it. And we all have that beauty inside of us. We all have the potential to be amazing. Earth is not that easy, it really isn't. But it can be a lot easier if we sort of work with the flow of earth, as opposed to the very generational way we have of working against the flow of earth.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. Guys, any comments, questions, or any thoughts for Adrian while we wrap up? Adrian, I just want to say thank you so much. It's been such a honor having you on, and getting to know you even better as time goes on. Guys, Adrian's also going to be writing an article. He's going to be featuring in the next month edition. The seventh edition comes next week. However, Adrian's article is coming out the month after. So, guys, have a look. There's going to be some communication around that. And also stay tuned. Yeah, so some comments for you, Adrian.
And we all have our challenges in life, because the reason why Adrian's article is not coming out this time and the next time around is because I'm not always that good with time. So I kind of slip my time away a little bit. I'm actually busy creating a website at the moment as well. And I'm not always sort of like that IT kind of guy type of thing. So, and I think as humans, that's the thing, we all sort of, when we can understand that we can all really benefit from working with each other. Because, I mean, I'm not even going to brag, but a couple of things in life that I'm really brilliant at. I'm brilliant at Reiki, I'm brilliant at crystal healing, NLP, regression hypnosis, tarot, teaching people psychic development, finding your patterns. So I'm really great at those things. But timekeeping, IT stuff, there are few things in this world that I dislike more than an Excel spreadsheet. Like, they make my stomach turn. So, we all a work in progress, all of us, and it's about challenging yourself. Sometimes it's about giving yourself that chance in life, really. Um, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. But I think we so easily just give up sometimes. Oh, it's not going to work. But
Yeah.
so I think I would only challenge you, if I can say anything, I would encourage you to actually give yourself a chance with something, whether it is learning how to make formula cookies from a packet where you add milk and put it in the oven. I know those flops sometimes, because I can make like traditional cookies, like actual cookies, but you give me
Yeah.
formula from a box, another flop.
Okay, so I usually do this at the end of the show where I like to surprise the guest, right? So I just have a few quick questions, just snap questions, right? So like fiery ass questions, just to get, just so that people know you a little bit better, right? So just random stuff. So don't stress, just random stuff, right? Okay.
I accept your
So what
apologies
is,
with extended explanation.
yeah. So just I'm gonna two or three questions. So first question is, what are you currently reading?
I'm actually not reading anything at the moment, which is quite a big. Oh, actually, I am. One of my friends, one of my clients gave me this beautiful deck of cards, actually, and I
Okay.
started to read the book. So I suppose that's what I'm reading.
Okay. Cool. Fantastic. Popcorn or ice cream?
Oh, goodness, that's not really fair. Ice cream, ice cream,
Ice.
ice
Okay. All right. And should I ask flavor?
cream. Anything really gelato, but if it's a shop bought one, normally rum and
Hmm.
raisin. You can add some rum
Okay.
to it as
Cool.
well.
All right. If you have to choose to be anything in the world, what it would be?
Anything other than a human being?
Yes.
I think I'd like to be a sunflower. They're like my favorite flowers.
Ooh, mine too.
Oh, okay.
Nice. Nice. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate
Thank
that.
you so
Guys,
much.
thank you guys so much for today. It's been really insightful, Adrian, having you on. I truly appreciate you taking out the time and also getting the article to us. I do appreciate it. So thank you so much for that, guys. Catch us next weekend. We actually have a kitchen talk, and we're continuing our kitchen talk actually from last month. Last month's topic was, is marriage overrated? This kitchen talk is about modern versus fairy tale marriages. And we have a group of women on and not the youth that was on last month.
I'm
What
gonna.
an interesting, hey?
Sorry, I'm gonna watch that.
Yeah, you're gonna. I don't know if you know Kimmy Timpias. So
Mhm.
she's coming on. She's also from Cape. In fact, both the ladies are from Cape Town, and we're bringing one of the youths from the last talk back onto the talk as well. To kind of share that, and you get modern type of marriages and what it's like today versus some of the people that's having a fairy tale type of image and imagery or an illusion that they are living in. So quite an interesting conversation. So yeah, next week is a kitchen talk. And then the following week we have somebody from, I think she's from Zambia. I think she's from Zambia, I'm not too sure. But yeah, catch you guys next week. Thank you so much, Adrian. Have a fantastic afternoon. I truly appreciate it. And guys, thank you so much. Have a great afternoon, everyone.